Hello, this is Silas, and this is a microaggressions and achievements in the lives of social justice warriors. So one of my friends pointed this out after the recent wins in Virginia. The Democratic Party running the United States of America in the state of Virginia, that is a Democratic stronghold, they voted heavily for the Democratic Party in the recent presidential election. They had some kind of midterm elections between some Democratic candidates and some Republican candidates. This Republican candidate was being touted by some on the right that, okay, there actually might be a chance to see if this person is going to actually beat the incumbent or beat the Democratic people who are running there. And it turns out that the Democrats won. And one of my friends pointed out, like, why are the Democrats so excited about this relatively minor win? They were expected to win. It would actually been a very big shock if the Republicans won. The Republican didn't necessarily embrace Trump, and Trump is the one who's actually the most popular when it comes to the right, when it comes to the Republican parties. But then he said, okay, why are they so overjoyed at these minor things? And it made me realize that the same people that seem to be very affected by things like microaggressions, they find that microaggressions are things worth complaining about. They're also likely to find micro victories worth something celebrating. They'll find some small thing to happen, and then for them that's like, yeah, let's go in the streets, or let's just be overjoyed by these micro joys, micro achievements. So it's just indicative of the way a group of people look at things in a different way. Now, I often say that different things happen for the same reasons, or the same things happen for different reasons. So I'm going to give an option of why this happens, this sensitivity to microaggressions and microachievements. So let's say somebody is an avid fantasy sports player. They may be very familiar with the details of the rosters in any given league. And let's say the National Football League, which is the American Football League in the United States of America. For example, my cousin recently asked me about the National Football League, about different teams in them, because you can gamble sports here in Kenya. You can just do sports betting and things like that. And he was curious if I had any more insight into some of the teams. He had previously told me that he bet on the Raiders, likely, and I was thinking this was probably more due to like the past glory that the Raiders had. I remember back when John Madden football came out, John Madden was a coach for the Raiders. And also even just the outfits for itself, the Raider logo, the silver and gray, that's very publicized, black, silver, and gray. Is it black and silver, black and gray? But that whole color scheme that the Raiders have, I remember having a winter coat for the Raiders. The Raiders was very popular gear-wise, and even with hip-hop culture than NWA, which is niggas with attitude, I think that's what it was called. But the NWA, Snoop Dogg, the West Coast rap, they used to wear a lot of Raiders gear, and I think that coming up in the hip-hop culture could have spread out to Africa too. So people kind of see that, and here people in Kenya might see that and be like, oh yeah, I actually have an affinity to that. Just shows how some advertising and things like that actually work. But that's a digression. I'm going to talk about that probably some other time. I'm actually very interested to see how like people, you'll see randomly people walking around with certain outfits here, certain clothes here, and it's kind of interesting to see how they get them. But anyway, back to this. Fantasy football. If you're a fantasy football fan, so this guy was asking me, my cousin was asking me about it, thinking, okay, I might know something about football. Now, I don't have that much knowledge about what teams you should bet on, since I don't watch that much NFL anymore. It's not at all as close to as what I once did. And this had begun actually before the national anthem protests that are going on right now. But someone standing to gain from betting, from knowing more about sports, may research the players, the teams, the stats in a level where they know it like the back of their head. They know it because it's their job. They're earning from it. They have a reason to learn this stuff. And just as I initially found out that I knew more about the sport when I first moved to the United States of America back in 2007, I'd been watching it when I was in the States, but then when I left, I started actually following the National Football League on Yahoo Sports or on online sources like Sports Illustrated, different online sources. And when I was online, I actually got to the point where I could actually see the players, know more about the stats, know more about the actual plays that were going on. If there was a player that I thought, oh, this guy's done well, I would actually click and then I'd see the backgrounds that then you'd end up jumping to another player and you actually get to know the roster pretty well. You know where they're coming from, you know the scouting reports and things like this. Just because I was looking for more on the players, because I didn't have them just sitting there watching it on Sunday like I was when I was in the United States of America. So I ended up finding out that I knew more about the professional game, even more than I knew about, I think, the game of football when I was actually playing in college. And these fantasy experts may be more aware of, for example, let's say a third string player on some team gets hurt during some practice. They may know that more than somebody who's got like season tickets to that team, who's been a lifelong fan. These tickets have been passed down in the family. They make every game. But this person who's a fantasy football player, might have just picked up fantasy football for a year, may know more about this. And why might they know about this? This might be like some third string wide receiver, but that third string wide receiver may have like a very high touchdown rate in the red zone. He's catching lots of touchdowns, not catching that many passes. Or they might know for some reason that when this guy is in the game, when they run a certain run play with him, he's very good at run blocking. So he's actually blocking the cornerbacks, or he's doing something that can actually set up mismatches. So he understands that if this player is not in the game, it's going to make that other team's defense have better stats or have your team have less stats. And then for him, he may know more about that. So he may understand, like, okay, now I should get that other defense to be on there. Because for them, that's a minor issue to people. That injury, to a fan, to somebody who's going there anyway, who's going there every weekend, going to tailgate, going to go there with his family, going to go there with friends, wearing the jersey, in the stands, watching the game, buying the concessions, everything. That third string wide receiver getting hurt might not affect that person's life. But to that fantasy football player, in his own sphere of interest, in his own community, that injury may be something worth discussing. They may be in the fantasy football sphere or whatever. Once that injury comes out, people are like changing things around. Like, okay, now we need to move this, and this, that, and this, whatever there. So yeah. So this is how I imagine this political victory is taken by some of the social justice warrior type. It's big to them. In their sphere of understanding, that is big because a lot of things have been happening very negative for that sphere, for the Democrats, for the people who are identify themselves as liberals or progressives or whatnot. So they need these small things. It might be a micro victory to other people outside, but to them it could be something major. It could be something bigger for them. Another related thing to that is the fantasy relation. For them, they may be more in touch with like the fantasy thing. For them, they might be looking at politics more like, oh, we're putting these people here and here. They don't really see it in the reality of it and see how this may actually not play that big of a part in the larger scheme of things. Maybe if they were aware of the larger scheme of things, they wouldn't really be that afraid or scared of what's going on in the government or in reality or in their personal lives. They probably wouldn't be SJW type to begin with. So they may be thinking that they can build up their own structures and organizations that can best fit a plan that they have in mind rather than coming to understand and participate in what's actually going on in society. So whether they're right or wrong about this, they may really feel that they have very little ability to influence actual reality, so they fall back on this fantasy thing. Similar to how somebody with fantasy football might think like, okay, for me, it's not really that interesting for me to just go watch this unless I feel I can participate in this. And since most fantasy football players can't afford to actually purchase a team, then or be a general manager of a team, this actually gives people a higher level of interest into what they're doing. And I see that kind of similar thing with the people politically and with sports. So that's just some thoughts on that. And what do you guys think about this? Many times we often consider something micro that to other people is actually major. So what are some few things in your life that you think most people would consider rather micro, but for you it's actually a big thing? Like if this thing changed in the morning, you'd be like, oh my God, this is not a good day. But most people just take it for granted or don't even realize that thing has changed. So it's certainly not reserved to social justice whiners or political issues or sports issues, as I gave a different example. And neither does this make the thing inherently good or bad. Like, for example, I consider spreading the message of peaceful parenting to be a major issue. And many people have told me that it's a minor issue to them. And this could be since they were raised to expect it. They were raised peacefully, and for them, everybody they know around them is doing it in a peaceful way. Some people don't understand how many people are actually still not peacefully parenting. Some people don't understand the effect of it. So for some people, if peaceful parenting comes up, if a time comes up to talk about it, they may not say anything. But for me, I might jump in and be like, yeah, that's a big issue to me. Or it might be a situation where something comes up where they see something not happening, or they see maybe somebody yelling at their kid, and for them it's a minor issue that they don't deal with, but I feel like, okay, that's a time for me to step in or to point out that this is going on. So yeah, that's just a microaggression thing going. And that's it for this video. And the illustration that was going on with this was, it's the Hulk. I was doing this piece from Thor Ragnarok. I think the Hulk goes along with this microaggressions, micro victories thing. With great film. I did a rant review thing of it, but I think with the Hulk also going around with this microaggression and micro victory, what if you had like the powers of the Hulk? And the Hulk used to have this thing where it's like he gets pissed off and then he gets angry and he hulks out and he has the whole this destructive power. And that's the thing with, I think, the importance of understanding micro victories and microaggressions is if you have the ability to be triggered by micro issues that are not really that big of an issue, there's a possibility for you harming a lot of things if you have that Hulk type power. If you have some power that's kind of exceeding your, not exceeding, but if you have some excessive force, if something small leads you to do something excessive and violent or damaging, you can actually harm a lot of people, including yourself. So I think it's good to understand what the micro aggression is, if it's actually something worth getting pissed about, what a micro victory is. Because if you're getting excited about the micro victory, you may think like, yeah, we've won something, when the battle or the war is still actually going on, and you might you might lay back and think, okay, things are okay now, when you actually should be actually putting your foot pedal to the metal. I shouldn't be putting so many idioms, but anyway, you might think, yeah, we've won. It's a micro victory. You haven't really won. You need to actually do more work. You need to actually focus on things that you can actually achieve and do. So yeah, that's it for this video. A bit rambling, and I shouldn't even say a bit rambling. I often ramble in these videos. It's rant-a-thon type thing. It's kind of what I do. So anyway, thanks for watching. Links below to the store with this merchandise and other designs. And also like, share, and subscribe. Until next video, goodbye.